Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Global Network webinars. So today we have a special edition of the Global Network webinars. It's a joint webinar together with the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, or better known as FAO, and the UN Datathon. The UN Datathon is a data science and big data competition which the UN is organizing at the beginning of November. So my name is Alexander Loschke, and I will be moderating this webinar today together with my colleague Sean Lovell and Panya Yu. We have with us today Aida Khalil, Oluwakayode Anidi, and Max Shang from the FAO, who will talk about how to unlock food and agriculture microdata through the FAM Catalogue. The FAM Catalogue is the Food and Agriculture Microdata Catalog, which was launched by FAO in 2019 to promote increased access to food security, nutrition, and agriculture-related microdata. As of today, the catalog hosts over 1,300 surveys and censuses, providing easy access to their relevant documentation, metadata, and in most cases, the actual microdata. Primarily targeted to FAM current and potential users, this webinar will focus on the catalog's main features, its publication workflow and supporting technologies, and on different microdata access modalities in place. And our speakers will also illustrate some of the data sets available on the FAM, so the FAM catalog, that could be used in the context of this upcoming UN Datathon 2023. Let me introduce now our speakers. So we have with us Aida, Anidi, and Max, who are all statisticians with the Office of the Chief Statistician of FAO. Aida coordinates activities related to the FAO Food and Agriculture Microdata Catalog and conducts methodological work in the field of data disaggregation and progress assessment of SDG indicators under FAO's custodianship. Anidi is working in the area of data dissemination. His main role, among other things, involves the curation, anonymization, and dissemination of microdata on FAO's microdata catalog. And Max's responsibilities encompass microdata anonymization and data visualization for the SDG indicators. Additionally, he is involved in the development of apps to automate the calculation of SDG indicators and monitor progress towards the SDG targets. So before I hand over to Aida, we will first hear the presentation before we will have a Q&A session at the end. Please feel free to write comments and questions anytime into the meeting chat. We will then give you, during the Q&A session, the opportunity to either ask the question yourself once we have activated the microphones and the cameras. So this creates maybe a more interactive atmosphere, or we can also ask the question for you if you prefer that. As always, this Global Network webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Global Network of Data Officers and Statisticians at yammer.com/UNstats. We invite you to continue the discussions on the Global Network after the webinar. And now, without any further ado, let me hand over to Aida. Aida, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex. So I'll share my screen. Let me see. Yes. Okay. Can you see my?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on the Food and Agriculture Microdata Catalog of the FAO. So as Alex already introduced, we have a webinar divided in three main parts. So I will first give an introduction on the importance of microdata dissemination and on the objectives of our catalog. Then Max will dive into the, let's say, technical feature of the catalog, as well as into the navigation of the studies disseminated through it, and on the modalities to request access to microdata. And finally, Anidi will go through all the collections of studies available on FAM, so the different types of studies that we document and disseminate, and will provide some examples of potential data sets for the upcoming UN Datathon. So the FAO, like other international organizations and the research community at large, are increasingly relying on microdata for various purposes. For example, for monitoring and evaluation, for the design of policies, programs, and intervention, and for assessing important trends and development outcomes such as the SDGs. So in this respect, the FAO is doing, let's say, many efforts to promote the collection of microdata through surveys and census in member countries, both through, let's say, corporate initiatives, but also through many, let's say, projects. Nevertheless, the collection of microdata through surveys and censuses is a very expensive and labor-intensive endeavor that can only be justified by enhancing not only the data collection component, but also the data dissemination and data use component. So the benefits of microdata dissemination are manifold. So to mention some, disseminating microdata allows increasing the return of the investment in data collection activities and enhance the transparency around the entire statistical production process. In addition, when well-documented microdata are disseminated in line with open data values, the results of research and data analysis are made reproducible by a larger audience, fostering the credibility of producing institutions. And finally, disseminating microdata opens the ways to new use of statistical information. So not only the use for which the data were designed, but other potential analysis and findings, and also is a leverage to create statistical innovations. So despite the importance of microdata dissemination, until 2019, the FAO lacked the policies and the IT infrastructure to promote the corporate dissemination of microdata and metadata collected through survey. So to fill this gap in 2019, the Office of the Chief Statistician of FAO launched the Food and Agriculture Microdata Catalogue with the financial support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the United States Agency for International Development. And the main idea behind the creation of the FAM was that of developing a one-stop shop where people could find all agricultural-related microdata available around the world. So at its launch, the FAM included about, let's say, 300 microdata files related mainly to the food insecurity experience scale survey of FAO. But now, after 3 years from its development, we have more than 1,300 surveys in it, so the microdata and the metadata of surveys and censuses from 183 countries around the world. And we are continuously updating the catalog when new data becomes available. So in the FAM catalog, you can find 3 main types of studies. You can find microdata files collected by FAO technical units, so data that are transmitted to the FAM team by internal FAO data provider through a data deposit system. Then you can find studies that are submitted by external data providers via email. External data providers normally are national statistical offices or line ministry in member countries, but the FAO is also collaborating with other international organizations, such as, for example, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, and also with the private sector. For example, at the moment, the FAM disseminates farm-level microdata collected by the Syngentas group. So when we disseminate microdata provided by external data providers, we ask the data owner to sign a license to redistribute that basically authorizes FAO to disseminate microdata collected by other institutions. So the microdata of both Category 1 and Category 2 studies are normally disseminated as license files. This means that users interested to access this file need to fill out an application form that our team reviews normally within 24 hours, and if there are not major problems, we normally grant access to the data. So then we have a third category of studies that include all the metadata that the FAO harvests from external and compatible platforms. So sometimes national statistical offices have their own microdata catalogs. We also have, for example, the World Bank microdata catalog. So in these cases, if we find studies that are relevant to food and agriculture, we harvest the metadata, we edit it in line with our internal standards, and then we publish it on FAM. And when the original platform is also disseminating the microdata, we put a link to redirect users to the original platform. Studies on FAM are organized under different collections depending on the main topic that they covered, and my colleague Anidi will, let's say, dive more into these aspects, showing you the contents of each of these collections. So regarding the technical features and statistical standards, the FAM catalog follows well-known international standards and best practices for all the phases of the statistical dissemination process. So for microdata curation, anonymization, and documentation. In particular, our internal workflow is regulated by a corporate quality standard on microdata dissemination, including a statistical disclosure control protocol and a data curation and documentation protocol. In addition, in order to tackle, let's say, the legal aspects related to data dissemination and redistribution, the Office of the Chief Statistician liaises with the legal department of FAO to draft a license to redistribute form, which is these documents that regulate, let's say, the dissemination of data provided by external data owners. For what concerns the IT infrastructure, the FAM catalog relies on the National Data Archiving Platform, which is an open source with web-based application developed and maintained by the World Bank. So nowadays, NADA is widely used by several national statistical offices and international organizations, which makes data exchange between compatible platforms relatively easy. In addition, the NADA platform has several backend features that makes, let's say, data secure and also prevents from possible crashes of the platform. The NADA platform supports the use of, let's say, various international standards for the documentation of the study and the related resources. So for the documentation of the study, we use the Data Documentation Initiative Metadata Standard, which is an XML-based international standard for the documentation of socioeconomic surveys. So it's widely used by all the, let's say, international and national organizations that are disseminating survey microdata. In addition, for the documentation of the related resources that are datasets, questionnaires, reports, methodological documents, we use the resource description framework standard. Finally, so most of the data that we disseminate through FAM are microdata collected through surveys and censuses. So microdata that cannot be disseminated as such due to confidentiality and privacy concerns. So before disseminating the data, we need to implement statistical disclosure control techniques, which are a set of procedures that allow us to treat the microdata files so that this can be published without disclosing the identity of respondents and other confidential information that are included in the data, while limiting the information loss that comes with the anonymization process. So we have in place what we call an SDC protocol, so a series of steps that we need to implement before disseminating the data. So with this, I finished the introduction on the FAM catalog, and I leave the floor to my colleague Max to, let's say, provide you with a more complete overview of the platform. Thank you very much. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, looks good. Thank you.
So I'll go over how to navigate the FAM website. We'll start with the presentation, and then we will go to the live website for the details. So to get to the website, we go to microdata.fao.org. There are two login methods for the FAO staff. We use the top one, and for all external one, you can use the link at the bottom. When you log in, you see the screen where you can search the data on the top. And on the left side, the data is also organized by year, by countries, collections, and license. So that helps you to identify the data you're looking for. So we'll go that part in details. And then when you find the study you are looking for, you can click to look at the study descriptions. At the bottom, it has all the information related to the study, all the metadata, how the data is collected, when the survey is conducted, what's the data collection methods of that. And you can find the data dictionary, where we have a brief summary of the data. You can look at the mean, you can look at the maximum. For categorical data, we also have a nice summary. And then when you're ready to download, you can download the survey questionnaire, you can download the related report. If there are any technical documents, you can also download that. Of course, the most important part is you can get the microdata. So there are three ways of getting the microdata. One is the data is readily available. You can go and directly download it. The second way is you submit an application for the access, which is a pretty simple and straightforward procedure. Go over that in the live demo. And the last part of the data is we provide you a link to the external data source, where you follow the link and then you leave the FAO's website to the data provider's website, and you download the data from there. So now let's go to the microdata's website. So as I was talking about, so here, when you land, you log in, you will get into here. You can filter the data by years or by the country that you're interested in. And we also organize all the data into different categories. So there is census and surveys, or food securities, or agriculture census metadata. There's also forest inventory dataset, nutritions, and data in emergency monitor systems surveys. There's also IFAD impact assessment surveys and the fishery surveys. For the license, so you can, if you go click the public use data file, you will download the data directly, and the license, the data file, is where you submit the application. And the last one is the data available from external sources, where you follow a link to the external source. And if the data is not available, we also provide the metadata, so which is also useful to find the data on the data. And on the top here, you can find the past research that's using the data that we shared on this platform. There are academic journals or reports that are using the data we published here. So let's go pick a random one that we go through the details. So let's say we are interested in the study of nutritional status and diets in so here we start at the bottom. There's study descriptions where we can find all the questions related to the data, including the sampling method, which is pretty important for the analysis. And also you can find when the data is collected, the data collection method, and also the access policy. And once you are familiar yourself with the study, you can go over here to the data dictionaries. So here we have 2 data files, and you can click any of them, and then this will be all the variables. So we have all the variables and a brief summary of the variables. So let's pick one. If we'll want to have a general idea of the food types, you can click here, and you can see there are 5 categories, and you can see the cases in each category. So this is for categorical variables. You can also find the information summary of continuous variables, like this one. What is the minimum? What is the maximum? This will give you a window of the data without you downloading the data yet. And for download, you can see here, you can download the questionnaires. And the last part is here where you can download the microdata. So for this one, the data is publicly available. So you don't need to do any sign any applications or agreement. You just go here and directly download. You can see the download the data is in different types. So this is the first time where the data is readily available. The second type is all other parts is the same as the first part. It's just when you get the microdata, you assign an application for access to a licensed data set. So here it's my as a example. And when you request the data here, you can see you can request the access to the data for one study only, or you can request the access to data from the same country, but from different years. So in this way, you just select all, and you will be able to download all the related studies from this country. And you sign the purpose, your what are your intended use of the data. Fill out this form at the end, and at the bottom you submit, and we will review it and grant access to your data. So let's say in this case, if the data is for the UN Datathon, you just specify that in these descriptions, and we'll grant access to whichever data set that you are interested in. The last part is where data is not hosted on this platform, but we provide a link. So we say please use the link. So you follow the link. Once you click the link, it will jump out of our platform and go to, in this case, you will be led to the National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda. So that completes my brief tour of the microdata platform. And if you have any questions, we can go through that in the Q&A session. That's all my presentation. And next, we'll have the floor to my colleague Anidi.
Thank you, Max. So I would be sharing my screen to take us through the last part of the presentations. So I will be taking the session on the different collections that we have on FAM. And also we see some potential data sets that could be useful for the UN Datathon. I hope you can you see my screen?
Yeah, but I see it in the speaker view. So if you share if you go to presentation mode, click on it and no, so if you start the presentation mode.
Okay. Just a moment.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. And then click, I think, on the screen symbol next to the search symbol. I think that should be switching this. One of those is to toggle the view.
Or I can use, maybe to save time, maybe Max can share his screen and I can use that just to save us some time.
Okay, whatever works.
Yes,
okay.
So perfect. So like I said, I'll be taking us through the FAM collections and the potential data sets that we could that could be useful for the UN Datathon. Next slide, please, Max. So currently we have these collections on FAM. We have a collection on agricultural census and surveys, one on meta-census metadata, one on food security, one on nutrition, data in emergency monitoring surveys. Then we also have a collection on IFAD impact assessment surveys, which is a group of surveys from the International Fund for Agricultural Development. We also have some surveys from on forest inventory data, and then a collection lastly on fishery surveys. Next slide. So the first one, which is the collection on agricultural census and surveys, mainly contains data sets on different surveys and censuses, and they are collecting data on crops, livestock, and other agricultural domains. Majority of the studies in this collection are external studies. And what do I mean by this is that the microdata for these studies are hosted in an external platform or catalog, which my colleague Max already explained earlier. But in addition, in this collection, we also have about 73 licensed data files, which can be accessed directly. That is, the data sets are hosted directly on FAM. And majority of these data sets in this collection are those of the Good Growth Plan survey, which is a survey implemented by Syngenta, which we have then signed a license to redistribute their data. So this Good Growth Plan data set contains information on productivity, and this can be used as a benchmark to measure, for example, crop yield and input efficiency. Next slide, please. There is also a collection on census metadata, like I mentioned earlier. For this, there is no microdata access available. It's just the information on the different censuses, agricultural censuses that are implemented by different countries around the world. So this is just for users to have access to information on these various censuses. Next slide. And also there's a collection on food security. In this collection, we have about 696 studies in total. And basically this collection contains different surveys on food security modules. And in particular, we have two major surveys in this collection. One is the Food Insecurity Experience Scale Survey. And the second one is the Resilience Index Measurement Analysis RIMA Survey. Which I will then explain further in the next slides. The Food Insecurity Experience Scale Survey in particular was a survey that was developed. Next slide, please, Max. These are groups of survey that was developed by the FAO Statistics Division, And so we've also have a license to redistribute their data. And these surveys are collected under the project called the Voices of the Hungry. And they basically provide information on people's access to food. And so they use the FIES model, in this case, uses a series of 8 questions to estimate the prevalence of food insecurity using, for example, moderate and severe values. And these data sets are useful in, for example, calculating the indicator 212, which is the prevalence of moderate and severe food insecurity in a particular population. The team, the food security team, has also developed a Shiny App tool, which can be useful to analyze the FIES data. So if you are interested in this data set, you can access the Shiny app to see how the data set can be used. You can analyze the data set. There's also another link there where you can also access useful resources and to also get additional information on the FIES data and how to analyze the data. Both these links will be provided in the chat, so you can, if you're interested in this data from these surveys, you can browse through them and also use these links to access them. Next slide, please. Next is also, like I mentioned, in this collection is we also have the resilience index measurement analysis surveys. And basically in these surveys, we have data sets that are collected based on the RIMA methodology. And this was developed by the FAO Agri-Food Economics Division. And it can be useful to measure, for example, household resilience to food insecurity. And so also in this case, the team has also developed a Shiny app that can be used to simplify the estimation of household resilience using this RIMA resilience index measurement analysis dataset. The link will also be provided. So these are also surveys that are collected in some countries across different years that can be useful for some users during the datathon if they find it interesting. Next slide, please. And also, in addition, we have a collection on nutrition, which is also some surveys that we redistribute based on our collaboration with the nutrition division in FAO. And so in this collection, we currently have 5 studies. We are working to populate with more studies from different countries. And basically, these are surveys that contain information on individual food consumption. And in this collection, all the data sets are available as public use files, like my colleague Max showed earlier. So users can access the data directly and download the data directly. Next slide, please. Also, there's a collection on data in emergencies monitoring surveys. These surveys have been collected by the FAO as part of a monitoring system to better understand the impact of various shocks on agricultural livelihoods, food security, and value chains. And these surveys are covering about 26 food crisis countries across various years. So they collect information from households on a periodic basis and also depending on the seasonality. So currently on FAM, we have different rounds for these data in emergencies monitoring surveys from different countries, food crisis countries. So if users are also interested in this, they can access this particular collection and request access to the data. Currently, all the studies, all the data sets in this collection are licensed data files, meaning that you have to submit a request for the data and provide an information on why you want to use the data set. And usually this request is reviewed within an hour or less, and you are granted access to the data sets. And next slide. Also, maybe particularly interesting to note is that the DM data are based on an open format, and also the questionnaires are standardized. The data is also authoritative and up to date, and they also go through a series of rapid data cleaning and processes to ensure high quality in the data set. So at the moment, the microdata are published on FAM, like I mentioned earlier, but also if users are wanting to have more information about the methodology and also to access useful resources, there's a data in emergencies monitoring hub platform. The link will also be posted where you can also access, for example, maps and dashboards and various reports on the different surveys that have been conducted in these 26 food crisis countries. Next slide, please. We also have another collection on the impact assessment surveys that have been conducted by the International Fund for Agricultural Development. These surveys are from about 17 countries, and they basically provide an assessment of the impact of various IFAD projects that have been conducted in these communities. So for example, we have surveys on livestock and pasture development projects. We also have some surveys on the coastal community development projects, and so on and so forth. So basically, if users are also interested in seeing the surveys from these different impact assessment surveys, then they can also access this collection and request for access to the data. Also important to notice that all these data sets under this collection are also licensed data files, meaning that users have to request the data and say why they need it, why they want to use the data, and they'll be granted access to the data set. Next slide. And then we also have another collection on forest inventory data. This is also due to our good collaboration with the NFI, National Forestry Inventory and Monitoring Team in FAO. And so basically we distribute also data sets from different national institutions on their forest inventory. Currently, we have about 3 studies for the time being, and we are, of course, working to populate this collection with more data sets. Right now, we have studies from Uganda, Guatemala, and Brazil on their national forest inventory. And at the moment, only one of the studies in this data set are licensed data files, while the other 2 are available in the external repository of the country, meaning that users that are interested in this would click on the link to get the data on the external platform. But on a general note, these surveys are useful and they collect information on different forest information. And also it has been useful to, for example, develop robust national forest monitoring systems across these countries. And so it can be used to generate reliable and accessible data on the status of, for example, trends of forest or on land cover information. And lastly, next slide, please. We have another collection on fishery surveys. This is also a new collection. Currently, we have about 4 studies on empowering women in small-scale fisheries across like about 5 countries. We're also working to populate this collection with more surveys in the nearest future. And this is also another collaboration we have with another division in FAO, which is the Fisheries Division. So if users are also interested in measuring women empowerment in fisheries, they can also request access to these data sets and to see useful information regarding this. That's all from my side. Maybe Max can just, if you can share the catalog so I can show the different collections just real quick. Just for maybe a few minutes. Or I can also do it from here. if you just go back, yeah, click OK. Yeah, so like I said, these are the different collections that we have. So basically, if you as a user, you're interested in a particular collection, all you just have to use is the filter button on the left to go to the different collections. For example, if you click on the food security collection, then you will see all the surveys available under this particular collection. And also within this collection, you can then filter by license. So you get those that are available, for example, through an external repository, or those that are licensed data files. And as Max already mentioned, for those that are available through the external repository, what it means is that the microdata is not hosted on our platform. It's hosted on the external platform, for example, the platform of the national country. But for those that are available as licensed data files, then you can make a request for the data, and we usually review this request within the hour. In fact, it just takes 5 minutes. Basically, why we need this information is just to know what the data will be used for. And users just have to also agree to the data access conditions, and that's it. And basically, so we invite participants and also other users as well to go through the different collections to see the data sets that could be of interest to them, especially in the context of the Datathon, and to request for the data, and we will grant you access to the data right away. Thank you. That's all from my side.
So thank you to the three of you for this presentation. Quite interesting, especially for our participants of the UN Datathon. I'm currently not seeing my screen, but it's fine. So there were a couple of questions in the chat, which I think might be useful to repeat. Also, I would like to ask people, if you have questions, you can now raise your hand and also ask the question in person. So we will give you the floor. I think one question which is interesting, especially to the participants of the UN Datathon, is if you can say again how to get access. So basically, you need to set up an account and you need to apply for each data set that you want to use. How does it work? Just to repeat this.
So yeah, I took note of many of the questions in the chat. So as you said, I would like to go through all of them. So to request access to FAM microdata, user. So I will just a second. I want to find the catalog. Okay, I'll share my screen. No, I cannot do it right now. I don't.
No. I see what the problem is. Yeah, sorry. Just give me 1 second. I enabled the microphones for the participants, and that somehow downgraded you to a normal attendee. I don't know why. So let me get you. So you should have sharing rights. I will do the same for Anidi and.
So this is the FAM microdata catalog, the let's say the landing page. I will paste the link in the chat, but you can also find it in the presentation. So from here, you can also have a glance of all the collections that Anidi was mentioning during the presentation. And then to access the catalog, you click on Visit FAM Catalogue. And then, I mean, to explore the catalog, you don't need to log in. You can simply use the filters or go through the catalog as it is. But then if you want to request access to the data, you need to log in. So you click on login, and then you have two options. You can either log in as a FAO user, but I guess most of you are not inside of FAO. Or you can sign in with a Google account. So in your case, you would have to click here. Most probably, like you, if you have already a Google account, you can use your Google account. Otherwise, you will have to create it, and then you can immediately, let's say, access the catalog. You will see something very similar to what you were seeing before, only that now, if you, for example, if you go to license and you select the license data files, and then you want to get microdata, okay, here I'm asked to, let's say, sign in. So I sign in with my FAO account, but you will see exactly the same as I'm seeing now. So let me, I'm not sure what's my password. No. Maybe
Can use the SSO.
Sorry?
You can use the FAO SSO.
Okay. So now here, if you are a participant to the UN Datathon, the only thing we need to know is, okay, I mean, if you don't fill in all the fields, you won't be able to submit your request. So please put the name of the receiving organization name. If you are a student, you can put the name of your university. So no need to be like an international organization necessary. Then a phone number that can be the phone number of your institution or your personal phone number. And then for the intended use, you can simply say UN Datathon, something like this, it's enough. And then if you already have in mind the list of accepted output, you can write them down. Otherwise, you can see you can write something very generic in the request, as long as, let's say, you will be using the data for the competition. Then if you have other team members for the UN Datathon, you can list them here. You can say I don't know, expected completion date could be the last day of the UN Datathon. Then you agree with this term of use that basically defines the type of things that you can do with the data. So you agree with the terms of use and you submit the request. Okay, now I cannot submit it because I need to fill in all the fields. So we will receive an email with your request to be reviewed. And the request, I mean, as Anidi mentioned, it doesn't take as long to review your request. My, let's say, advice is to submit your request before the beginning of the UN Datathon. So maybe you can already start reviewing the catalog and see if there's something relevant for what you want to do, especially considering, let's say, the time difference that we have. So we are based in Rome. So when you will start, let's say, competing, for us, it will be already like evening. So if possible, it would be good if you can submit your requests in advance. So I mean, this is all on this point. I saw that in the chat there was a question on, let's say, APIs to share information. So as you have seen, most data, maybe then Anidi, you can add more on this, but most data are available as license files. So you need to pass through a granting process, let's say, in order to get access to the microdata. We only have like 5 data files that are accessible as public use files, so that you can directly download from the catalog. Then, okay, like as Alex said, the PowerPoint presentation will be shared right after the meeting. And okay, there was a question on geographic disaggregation. So at what level data are presented? So in most cases, you won't be able to find the geo coordinates of the data. And this is due to, let's say, the current anonymization procedures that we adopt. So we don't disseminate the coordinates of respondents. We are, although like studying methods to anonymize geospatial coordinates. So in the future, you may also be able to find georeference data. At the same time, we have, let's say, information on the location of the respondent. So depending on the study, for example, the region identifier, the province identifier, and so on, depending also on the sampling design and on the representativity of the sample. I see in the chat an additional question. So yes, people can start anytime to submit the request, even like from today, if they want. I also saw a comment on the, let's say, the timeliness of the data, in the sense that at the first glance, it seemed that we have outdated data. Actually, like we have surveys up to 2022, 2023. So of course, like surveys, the production cycle of sample survey is normally quite long. So you cannot expect to have surveys there like for 2023. Maybe in some cases we have for but we for sure we have data referred to 2022 at least. And I don't know if my colleagues want to add something on these points.
Also, Max and Anidi and Aida, if you could switch on your cameras again. I don't know, when I turned on the microphones for everyone, apparently everything was switched off. I'm not sure why. So yeah.
Do you see us?
I see Max, I see also Ronald coming up. Aida, you're still not visible, but let's continue with the questions. And I see Ronald's hand is up. So maybe Ronald, let me give you the floor first, and then we can take additional questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, yes, so to the presenters, thanks very much. I think it's very interesting. It's an extremely interesting data catalog, very relevant data in there. I got two questions. One is I put that in the chat also somewhere. It is that, well, we work. I mean, some of the participants will be from China who will not be able to have a Google account. So in that, for those, if there are participants from China, could they somehow write to you directly and then maybe get the forms that they have to fill out and then send it like in an old-fashioned email way. So just one question. And the other one is, do you have suggestions? I mean, these kind of data are used in certain kinds of research projects. Do you have suggestions how these survey data sets could be linked with other data? And maybe you have also some examples about how this is linked with population data or other kinds of data that might be available. If you have some suggestions for the participant, that might be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see. Yeah, Anidi, go ahead.
No, just for the first point, I mean, we already have some users from China already accessing data. So all they just need to do is sign up on the FAM catalog itself, right? So of course, there's an option to log in with your FAO account or a social account, but you can also create an account itself on the FAM platform to access the data.
Otherwise, I guess they can also send us an email, no? With I pasted here our email account. So if they send us an email, they can resend them the application form, and yeah, and they can send us the request. I'm sorry, Alex, I see myself on video. I don't know how to manage this. Okay, and
I'm muted, sorry. Yeah, no worries about that. Please continue.
Okay. Then for the second request on possible uses, okay, it would have been nice if some of the actual data owners would be here. But for example, with the, as Anidi mentioned, with the FIES data, it is possible to implement a quite, let's say, sophisticated statistical technique to estimate this prevalence of moderate and severe food insecurity. So the prevalence of moderate and severe food insecurity is estimated with the RASH model, which is part of the item response theory models. And in the Voices of the Hungry website, there's all the documentation, let's say, to implement this approach. So this could be something that can be done. Otherwise, regarding data linkages, a user could try, for example, to implement small area estimation techniques, linking survey data with external data sources such as censuses, geospatial information to produce, let's say, granular estimates at the subnational level. So on a few websites, we have some examples of these exercises. I can paste the links in the chat. And then I don't know if my colleagues have had other, let's say, suggestions of analysis that could be performed with the data on FAM.
Okay. The thing I can add is when you link to other data sets, because all the data on the platform went through a data anonymization process. So the data provider's privacy will be protected, even if you go through the process of linking the data set we have with the other external data set. So it's okay.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, only the linkage can only happen at the broad area level, let's say, not at the detailed micro level. I don't know. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I see a question also on pre-processing and data cleaning. So, I mean, most of the data sets that we receive from the data providers have already undergone a sort of pre-processing and data cleaning by the data providers before they give it to us. And even when we get them, we ourselves still check this data set for quality. So we also undergo some processes ourselves. And once we certify the quality, we then it then goes through a series of data anonymization procedure. And then we go through a sort of validation and checks stage with the data provider before we disseminate them on FAM. There's also a question on if we'll provide a specific data to work on, or they're expected to collect their own data. I think this is more a question for the Datathon organizers. I don't know if some users will also have access to some specific data sets.
Yeah, let me maybe say a few words about that, and maybe if Ronald wants to add to that later on. So we will have provide the participants with a list of data sets and data sources. This doesn't mean that you are limited as a participant of the UN Datathon to those data sets, but in principle, you can use any publicly available data set for your project. And maybe there was also a question about the theme. So the theme will be revealed of the UN Datathon will be revealed this Thursday in our last webinar. So I've put the registration link also in the chat. So please sign up for that webinar if you haven't done so yet. And maybe Ronald, if you want to add something to this question regarding the data sets, please go ahead.
Yeah, so also Thursday we'll add our catalog of portals mostly what we put out there, and one of them will be the FAM Catalogue for data regarding food security. So yes, there will be many data sets which we sort of how you say this. See as guidance for participants to start using. It's a wide range of data at different levels, also of geography And it really depends then after that the teams decide themselves on what they want to work on, which data sets actually are useful for you. But there will be quite a number of, like I said, data portals, so thousands of data sets behind that, including the data sets from FAO. Back to you, Alex.
Yes, thank you. So we have reached now 9:32, so we're basically at the end of today's webinar. I just wanted to add one more thing regarding the UN Datathon, and that is, so on Thursday we will also publish our UN Datathon wiki, which will provide a big wealth of information on how to use the different analytical tools, the different platforms that are available to you, also lists of data sets as just mentioned. So please join on Thursday. And before we leave now, I would like everyone, if you can maybe switch on your cameras and switch on the microphones. Now is the time that everybody can show their faces. Don't be shy. And then maybe we can give our speakers a big round of applause for this great presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. So the recording of this webinar, joint webinar with FAO and the UN Datathon, will be available on the global network of data officers and statisticians at yammer.com/UNstats, and also on the UN Datathon website. Also, I guess on the FAO website. So you have different places where you can check this out. And yeah, thanks for joining. Please join also on Thursday for the last webinar for the UN Datathon if you're participating. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.